All right, guys. Welcome to the second day of the Super Conference. This talk is intro to day game. So I'm going to cover a lot of the sort of basic day game theory. There'll be some time for questions, I think, as well. All right, so let's get into the day game stuff. So why day game? There's a few different reasons why I really enjoy day game. One is that I think it's very sort of practical in that to go out, you got to invest, you got to get your money together, maybe get bottle service in certain cities like this. You got to call up all your buddies and like organize it, and then you commit as well to like the whole night out, possibly being hungover the next day, getting up late, et cetera, right? Day game if you learn it, you can just do it on the fly, you can go out and practice it for like 4 hours on a weekend or whatever, but you can also just do it on your lunch break, It's convenient. I find the quality of conversation and the quality of women you meet can be incredible. To be honest with you guys, and this is going to be different for different instructors, the guys who do less day game and do more night game will have met probably their best women from nightclubs. But for me personally, I've only ever met one woman that I really loved from a nightclub. Tons of one-night stands and stuff, but like in terms of a relationship, someone I fell in love with, there was one guy. Actually, funnily enough, it was in Vegas at 6 a.m. at Dre's, which is fucked up, I know, but she ended up being amazing. And the other sort of three or four women that I've really loved in my life all came from day game. So there's a quality there. Third thing, I think in a way, it's kind of easy. Let me just get a quick show of hands. Who's done some day game approaches before? Hands up. Okay, who's done more than 50 day game approaches? Hands up. Okay, all right, so a reasonable bit of experience in the room. So I don't know if like the guys who've done a lot of approaches have found this, but sometimes you'll meet some like ridiculously hot gal, maybe she's a model or a stripper or something, or she's just, really beautiful, and you go up to her and she's so pleased you came up to her, and she's like, oh my God, and then you're like thinking, shit, if I met you in a club, I'd have to like fight off the 10 guys like going up to you, Future Vassetti would be there, like getting in as well, you'd be like, but in day game, it's easy, And I put up there the ultimate goal for, like the ultimate goal I see this as having is about having the freedom to see, so if you see someone you like, going up and doing it. I think of day game as anything outside of a bar or club. I wanna like share a couple of stories with you actually. So, I mean, I could tell you guys hundreds of stories about conquests I've had and cool girls I've met and that. But the longer I've done this, the longer I've been a professional dating coach, the more I take pride and joy in seeing the lives that I transform. So you guys, the other instructors that I train and end up working with. So I want to tell you guys about my boy Nick, who's the tall, good-looking guy from Vancouver, who, when we were in Toronto, the first time he helps out, ends up telling me that he took home a girl that he met with her mum that day on the street, walked past her, went up to the girl, started talking to her. The mom started giving him like death stares, like looking at him. And then he was like, hey, mom. And then started befriending her. Ended up sleeping with that girl later that night. I want to tell you about Manny, who is the Indian guy with his hand up at the back, who was sitting with me at an IHOP in Austin at like 3 fucking a.m. after an Austin day game workshop after having helped out. And we're like, hungover, and we look and feel like shit. And I get this message from him like later on that day, and he's like, dude, I was at Austin airport at like 6 a.m. and there was this hot fucking model sitting there. And I ended up talking to her, and we got on like the same flight, and we chilled at the next airport. And I see pictures of this guy. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, you went and did this at like 6 a.m. on a Monday. You know what I mean? Like you looked and felt like shit. And this girl's like super cool. And she updates her Facebook page with sometimes the random conversations you have in airports can really change your life. I don't know what you said, man, but that's some good shit, right? Good man. And I want to tell you about Andy as well. Do we have Andy Venture in the room? Andy might not be here. Andy's a big guy from England. Some of you might have worked with him. We were in Oslo last weekend. And the guy's a bit of a sexual demon, you know? Like, he's always just like, yeah, I'm banging this chick in the bathroom or whatever, doing this. But he's also a bit of a romantic at heart. And last weekend in Oslo, he met this girl. And, like, girls have this tactic. Girl game is basically holding off on sex so that you start to like them more and, you know, you kind of want to date them more. And, you know, this girl did that and it worked. But she's a cool girl. And he ended up delaying his flight back to London so he could spend another, 3 days with this girl. And now they're, talking every day on the phone and they have this connection, you know? And I'm telling you guys, it's things like that, like the 3 stories I just told you, that make all the pain and all the frustration worthwhile. You know, I could tell you so many horror stories, but honestly, thinking about even just the last girl that I fell in love with and the girl I still love, I feel like all that pain and frustration was worth it just to meet one of her. You know what I mean? And to have the freedom, I guess, as well. All right. So I'm going to cover 2 basic things today. We're going to go over, first of all, how to do an approach. And then we're going to talk specifically about running good conversation. So my stock opener, and this is something I came up with for day game, but I also use it in most situations like nightclubs and stuff. My stock opener is, excuse me, I just saw you doing X, and I had to come tell you why. So the first part, I just saw you doing X, is a way of kind of warming up the situation a little bit. Imagine I were to just, there's a girl in a cafe, and you know she's in the corner, and I'm over here, and she's quietly eating her lunch, and I go over and go, "You're really fucking hot." It's a little bit kind of creepy. It comes out of nowhere. It's too sudden. On the other hand, if you go over and you say, "Excuse me, I was just sitting over there and I couldn't help but notice you. I had to come and tell you that I think blah, 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 blah." That's the next part, right? But to say, you know, "I just saw you sitting there," or "Excuse me, you know, I was just walking past and I noticed you," it kind of warms up the situation a little bit, okay? The second part is that "I had to come tell you this," and that's the compliment part. So basically, you want to tell her that you think she's physically attractive. Now, the way I normally do that in day game is to say something like, "I think you look absolutely beautiful. I think you look stunning. You look incredible." You know, but it's kind of like a slight gentlemanly romantic vibe. In a nightclub, I change that up. I'm a bit more feral. Sometimes I'm like, you know, "You're fucking hot. You look really sexy. Like, nice fucking tits." I think that's a Braddock one. But it's a bit more like sexual. It's a bit more, you know, that kind of nightclub guy, right? But in day game, you're not going to go up and go sexual that early. So keep it kind of gentlemanly and romantic. And, you know, I recommend to all of you guys to, if it's your first, say, 1,000 approaches or first 500 approaches, stick to the script. This opener has gotten me laid. This is like thinking about, you know, everyone I've been with. That opener probably accounts for about 70% of the sex I've had in my life. It's a good fucking opener. Okay, use it. All right, and it's a stock template. So stick to that script and use it. But as you get more experience, you get more practice, feel free to deviate and fuck around with shit, you know? And that's how you get good, by experimenting, okay? But until you've done like 500 approaches or so, stick to the script. the words are one thing, and you need to get the words down pat, but there's so much in the delivery as well. Now look, and one of the reasons why I like day game as well is because there's a lot of finesse to it. There's a lot of subtle detail and stuff. Nightclubs tend to be messier. I can go up to a guy at a nightclub and be like, hey, you're fucking sexy. Or after a few drinks, I can go up and be like, hey, you're fucking sexy. And it doesn't really change anything. In day game, like the subtlest sort of movements in your body, the way you like deliver as you open is so critical. Because it's not expected to be social, right? She's going about her day, she's doing shit, and you're some stranger coming up to her. You've got to make a good impact straight away, right? So let's get into the body language fundamentals of that. Posture, the guys I was working with in the breakout room yesterday, I kept to one thing I like do to most guys I see is push their shoulders back. Most guys will kind of stand like this. It's a really subtle thing, but like check this out. If I go up to a gal and I say, excuse me, I saw you and I had to come and tell you I think you're really beautiful, versus, excuse me, I saw you and I had to come and tell you, blah, blah, blah. Can you see the difference? This looks so much more masculine and confident, right? This is kind of like, yeah, I'm not too, like I don't feel so good about myself. But this is like, this is how it fucking is. This is the deal. This is what I'm going to say. And you can say what you want, but I'm going to deliver this and, I got to tell you this. Your speech. The number one mistake most guys make when they deliver an opener is speaking too fast. So slow that shit down. Sometimes I'll put in quite big pauses to build tension. So could I borrow someone? Could I borrow you? Come up. Tell me the difference when, if I come up to you and I say, excuse me, I just saw you stand there, and I had to come and tell you I think you look absolutely beautiful. What's your name?
Jessica.
Jeremy, nice to meet you. Versus, excuse me.
Yes.
I just saw you standing there, and I had to come and tell you you look absolutely beautiful.
A lot better the second time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, thanks. No, it's going to be, this is part of your social intelligence, but it's going to be situationally dependent. So, this is the thing. You can't sort of pause that long in like some busy nightclub when a girl's like, oh, what? Like she'll walk off when you're like, but, a quiet cafe or even like a sort of street that's not too busy, those pauses can really make a big impact. There's something else I do as well. I recommend experimenting with this, and definitely the guys who have like tons of experience, like maybe say like 500 approaches or whatever, if you've done a significant amount of day game approaches. What I found after a while was my approach, I was so used to it that I delivered it perfectly. It was so smooth. I just got up to gals and, excuse me, I just saw you walking past, and I had to come and tell you, you look absolutely beautiful. I'm Jeremy. And then girls would be like, you do this a lot, don't you? So at that point, I added in fake nervousness, okay? So I went up. And I was doing a little bit with you, so I was like, excuse me, I just saw you walking past, and I had to come and tell you, blah, 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 right? But it's this slight, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm not entirely sure what I'm saying here. I feel a tiny bit awkward, but I'm still going to drive the conversation forward, And contrast is good as well. So sometimes if you come in with that kind of slight element of, like, chody, nervousness, and then suddenly you snap into, yeah, so I know what you mean when I was in Thailand and blah, 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 and you go into this fucking dominant, confident story. It's good. Hands is the other one. If I stood up here and spoke to you guys like this, the whole seminar, it wouldn't be very engaging, right? You get engaged, through my sort of passion, and that's communicated through the hands, right? So when you go and open a girl, think about that. It's a lot better when you talk to her, when you deliver the line, to have your hands in this kind of area. I mean, not on her or anything, but just around here, and it's kind of like this delivery where you're saying, this is how it is, You don't want to be like this, okay? This is like, please. Or like one guy in New York, he was like, you look absolutely beautiful. I was like, dude, you got to stop doing that. It's like, no, listen, this is how it is. I think you look fucking gorgeous. I think you look amazing, whatever. Okay? So keep them up. Whatever you do, don't put your hands in your back pocket. I was working with one guy yesterday who kept opening like this. I was like, no, dude, stand up tall, hands out here, right? After, if you want your hands to chill somewhere, especially if your first sort of 500,000 approaches, let them chill around here, and then they can spring back into action as you start talking, okay? Let me talk about girls in different situations a little bit. So the classic day game approach, and my personal favorite and what I do the most of, is the street approach with the girl walking past you. So with that, can I borrow you again, man? So with the street approach, stay there. With the street approach, what I'll do is, this is if she's walking, right? I'll let her walk past. So come this way, so walk past me. I'll let her walk past. Then I'll double back and catch up to her and grab her here. Sorry, not grab her, but light touch here, right? And stand at right angles to her. So she's going that way. I'm here, 90 degrees, right, on the side. I don't want to be behind. If I'm here and I'm like, hey, I'm asking that person to turn all the way around, which is asking quite a lot. And if I jump in front, it's quite confrontational, But if I come here, it's kind of like this happy medium, all right? Thanks. Now, as soon as that touch lands and you say, excuse me, you got to plant your feet and stop. You got to stop your tracks. If you go up and touch her and approach her, and then she doesn't stop, and you keep walking with her, and you're like, I had to come and tell you, I think you're absolutely gorgeous. It's really creepy, all right? And there's no chance of her stopping. No girl is, if you're doing that, it kind of looks like low-value behavior, right? Even if she kind of takes a few steps, I have a rule where I'm actually planted there. And if she keeps walking, if she's like, who are you, whatever, I'll just stay here and I'll turn. And she might even be 5 feet away or 8 feet away or something. And I'll just project and say, I had to come and tell you. And at some point, ideally, what you see is this. She's like, I try and stop her here, and then she's like, and then I'm planted, right? And then she's like, here. Now, once she's stopped, I'm allowed to close the distance. So once she's stopped, I'm normally halfway through the open at this point, that you look absolutely gorgeous, There's something about blah, blah, blah. But I close the distance once she stopped, okay? It might sound like a minor detail, but this is really important in places like London, New York. LA is not so bad. I find LA chicks Third Street Promenade and Day Gamer is pretty friendly. But the kind of tougher cities, you'll find there are a lot of girls that will kind of want to keep walking, and it's difficult to stop them. So this technique is really important for that. With a girl that's standing there, the approach is a bit more obvious. You can just go up and say, hey, look, I just saw you standing there, blah, 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 blah. If a girl's sitting somewhere, and I'm going to explain a couple of different situations, but the key thing with a girl sitting there is that if it goes well, you want to be able to sit down with her. So before you go up, you need to scope it out, see where if there's a spare chair there. If not, is there one nearby that you're going to be able to grab without it being awkward and stuff like that? So scope it out. And then what I do is I'll go up and I'll say, excuse me, blah, 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 blah. I just saw you sitting there. And you got to be socially intelligent at this point, because if she's like, you know, and really, yeah, I'm Sarah, and just really not into, and then you're like, cool, and you sit down with her, you create this really awkward, she doesn't want you to be there, you know, you're unwanted, and it's hard for her to be like, listen, can you leave? So what I do is, I do the opener, and I say, what's your name? And from, you know, how they kind of respond to it, I make a judgment call on pitching to sit down and join her. And my pitch is normally like, so, you know, like, blah, 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 you're absolutely gorgeous, what's your name? Do you mind if I join you for 30 seconds? Right, so there's a bit of that time constraint thing going on, but it's just, do you mind if I join you for 30 seconds? Okay? And if she, you know, is single and potentially into you or whatever, then often she'll say, you know, sure. And after that point, you gotta, you know, demonstrate your value and stuff. But sometimes you're like, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for my boyfriend, or, you know, I got a lot of work to do, which is, no worries, it was nice to meet you, have a nice day. Different situations dictate like how you can open, and you know, sort of when you should do it and stuff. So one of the biggest factors that affects this is it a static situation, and are you close to her already? So for example, a girl sitting next to you on the train, or say in an airport lounge, or even next to you in a cafe, right? If you turn around to her and you say, you are absolutely beautiful, and she's like, yeah, not interested, then you have to kind of sit there, and it's really awkward, which, you know, it's not a nice feeling. I've done this before. I mean, I'm telling you through my failures and mistakes, right? So in that situation, that's where an indirect opener comes in useful, okay? I wouldn't go with an opinion opener. I'd try and figure out something situational to say. But I'll tell you guys now, I'm shit with situational openers. I'm not a very kind of creative person. I'm very like, I have a framework and I stick to it, right? And it actually makes me uncomfortable to try and have an indirect opener with a girl. So what I do, because this is my favorite opener, I enjoy it so much, is I will literally wait until there's a better opportunity to catch her. So for example, the girl sitting next to me in the cafe, I'll wait, might make brief eye contact with her, but then I'll kind of chill my laptop and wait till she gets just outside, till she leaves and goes outside the cafe, and then I'll run up and be like, excuse me, you were sitting next to me in the cafe, and I got to tell you, blah, 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 right? And that way, if she walks off at that point, it doesn't matter, like it's outside the cafe, I can go back in and stuff. So that's if she goes out first. Or if I have to leave, if she's still there and I got to go somewhere, then I'll kind of pack up my stuff and I'll start to head out, and then I'll like double back and be like, excuse me, I was just about to leave, but I had to come and tell you, blah, 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 okay? So do you see what I'm doing? I'm like engineering a better logistical situation so I can do it the way I want to do it. And I think this is kind of, you'll notice this with instructors, but we all have preferences. We all like certain types of girls and doing things certain ways. And we sort of find our niches and we enjoy the hell out of it, So as you get more experience, like figure out what works best for you. Like, do you like doing indirect openers on trains? Do you like chilling in cafes? Do you like doing the like hardcore direct on the street? Just experiment with it and figure out what you enjoy. And yeah, just sort of going back to the point I made earlier, like I really do think of day game as anything outside of a bar and club. So anytime, like any place you see a girl, like an art gallery or an airport, like my boy Manny did, give it a shot. You don't really have anything to lose. And there are times when you do these insane ballsy sets, like it's 10 girls sat down in some quiet restaurant, and you go up and you're like, excuse me, blah, 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 and like these 9 girls are like, but then as you deliver it, and if you do it right and you do the confidence, it goes from like, shit, look at the balls on this guy, and this girl's smiling, and you're like feeling pressure, and you're like, hi. And it's fun, and it's a risk reward thing. The higher the risk, the more like the reward, right? Like you get more points for doing something like that. A lot of you guys, can do openers and stuff, and then you're like, what the fuck do I say? All right. So I came up with this thing called conversation mapping, and it's a big part of my workshop. We do a lot of exercises on it and stuff, but I'm gonna teach you guys the basic theory of it now. So there was a point when I was analyzing all my approaches, and I was thinking, all right, which are the ones that end up going well? And at the time, I remember talking about dancing a lot. Whenever I got into a conversation about dancing with the girl, I felt like it went quite well. There was a good chance of that converting into a number or date or whatever. And I thought to myself, is dancing just a good topic with girls? And then I realized it was because I was a dancer at that time. Like I was doing dance training, I was doing hip hop and body popping and stuff. And I was very passionate about it, right? And talking about something I was passionate about, talking about something I was experienced in, that I had knowledge on, especially with girls who had some kind of an interest in dancing, even if it was like a little gentle interest, was attractive because it demonstrated some of my good sides, right? So I call these things mastery topics, and we all have them. And then, they change over time, right? So like now, my biggest mastery topics are probably traveling, dating, and business. If you heard the conversations I had with women last night, it was just, pinging, just cycling, traveling, dating, business. And always like different variations, but basically those three topics, because those are the three things I understand best, and the three things I'm most passionate about. So you got to sit down and think to yourself, like, what are my mastery topics? What am I good at? What do I really like doing? However, you have to filter these mastery topics through the attraction switches. Okay, so for example, traveling can be a mastery topic, and it's cool because it demonstrates social intuition. If you're traveling the world, meeting lots of people, understanding different cultures, you probably have some element of social status if you have friends in different places. There's passion. If you've seen a lot of shit around the world, you're probably a bit of a challenge in some ways. You're not going to be a pushover. So it kind of contains elements of that. On the other hand, let's say, I'm trying to think of something really random. Playing Tiddlywinks. If you're a Tiddlywinks champion, you guys, you know what Tiddlywinks is? Or like it's a little childhood game or something like that. It's not necessarily going to be as useful a thing to talk about. But there are some things that a lot of you guys might think, oh, like engineering, I can't talk about that, or chess, I can't talk about that. But you got to pick that topic apart and try and figure out, hold on a second, is there some level of confidence I can show by talking about that? Is there some level of status or passion and all the different attraction switches? So for example, even, chess, if you're good at chess and you play in tournaments, you can talk about how you love like squaring off with an opponent, how there's a lot of reading involved. Like you got to look in the guy's fucking eyes and read him and try and figure out like what's his play going to be, And you can talk about like how it's funny because it's not a physical activity, but you get so nervous sometimes when you're playing this tough dude that you actually start to sweat. And it took a lot of confidence for you to take down the last guy you played or whatever, right? So really like hammer those attraction switches into what you're talking about. Another couple of important things to note. So the one aspect of a mastery topic is talking about it. So let's say I bring up traveling and I start saying, the thing I love about traveling is you get to meet so many people, and I feel like it really broadens your mind. Like the people I've met over the last few years have taught me all these crazy things, and I wouldn't be here in Las Vegas right now if it wasn't for like 5 pivotal conversations that changed my life, and they probably span Sydney, LA, Singapore, London, and Stockholm, And that's what I love about traveling. So that's the kind of mastery topic statement bit. And that's what builds attraction. But you've also got to learn how to bridge between topics. So this is like one of the real arts of being able to demonstrate your value, but being able to take one thing and go to a completely another thing that actually ends up showcasing your value. So somebody shout out something random to me. Give me a word, someone. Clunge. What, sorry? Apple. You know, it's funny you bring up apples. I was thinking the other day, like obviously I'm in Vegas now and I'm destroying my body, right? My liver's hurting. But I was living in Sweden last year, and after just, I think it was like 5 days there, the food quality is so good, the water's so good, the air is so good. I was lifting more weights than I've ever lifted before. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like you put good stuff into your body and good stuff comes out. You know, you look like you're in pretty good shape and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So what did I just mentioned Sweden. I mentioned like, you know, I work out, I'm health conscious. Okay? Somebody give me another word. Jellyfish. You know, it's so funny you bring up jellyfish. I was thinking the other day that I really love nature, you know, like different animals and stuff. And right now I'm living in London, but last year I was living in Sweden, and they have so many different animals and creatures and blah, 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 blah. Do you see the theme there? All I'm doing is trying to hammer my Sweden story. Last year I was living in Sweden. That's the fucking crux. Whatever you say, I'm trying to figure out a way to bridge to it. Okay? And that's the art of being able to demonstrate your value to a complete stranger that you've known for all of 12 seconds, right? And it takes a lot of practice, okay? But you can, you know, sit down, figure out these mastery topics, figure out the statements that you're going to make on those topics that demonstrate value, and then think, how can I bridge to these things? I'll teach you guys a couple of like useful ways to bridge to things. One way is through a logical bridge. So what I just used, I took jellyfish and I was like, jellyfish, animals, there's, you know, nature, there's good nature in Sweden, right? There's a series of logical connections. Or I might be like, you know, do you enjoy like your job as a dancer? And she's like, yeah, I really enjoy. I'm like, you know, what is it? You know, what's the buzz like? Tell me about the feeling. Like, what is it you like about dance? She's like, well, I really love when people look at me and, you know, I move my body and I feel confident about it and I'm getting attention because I didn't always feel this way. And I might say, you know, it's funny. I get that feeling when I'm in Sweden, you know, like I just moved there. And because I'm this dark-skinned guy, like I'm kind of exotic there. And when I walk through a crowd there and speak English, people look up and they take, you know, blah, 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 blah. Okay? This is what I'm saying. Like you listen to instructors talk to girls, same fucking shit, just, you know, wrapped up in a different way, like girl after girl after girl. Okay? And finally, like relating is another part of it. So what I mean by relating is that sometimes you're talking to this girl and she's like, I'm really into hockey, or I'm really into this. And when you're in comfort, it's good for girls to kind of talk a lot, like to get them to open up and share stuff with you. But when you're in attraction early on, the first sort of few minutes, you don't want to let her talk too much. You want to talk probably 70% of the time, 70 to 80%. And if you get onto if some, you know, hockey topic or whatever comes up that you know nothing about, it's not a master topic and you can't build value on it, then you need to just relate to her a little bit, but then bridge out of it. Okay? So if hockey comes up, I'm not going to be like, oh, hockey. Fuck. Do you travel? You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, oh, hockey. Oh, that's really cool. A good friend of mine just got a pro hockey offer. Like he loves doing it. You know, do you play hockey mostly here, or do you also play in sort of other cities and have to travel for it? I'm trying to go to travel in, right? Okay. A couple of other points. When I talk about the statements, right, when you're using these mastery topics, they're I statements, so they involve the I. So for example, I think, you know what I think? You know what I feel? You know what I want? You know what I did once? You know what I believe? Okay? It's really boring for girls when you talk to them and you're just like, oh, what do you think and what do you like? Being able to go up to women, you know, strangers you just meet on the street, and offer your opinion on things, offer your viewpoint. Say, yeah, well, it's funny you bring up Thailand because I was just thinking about Thailand and what I noticed over there was this. And I was there a few years ago and what I did was this. Well, it's interesting that you're in engineering. I actually considered that route. I ended up going into law, but okay, it's I did this, I like this, I like that. That builds attraction. The 80-20 rule is what I mentioned earlier about you talk 80% of the time for the first sort of five minutes until attraction is sort of built. I throw in a bit of qualification with my mastery topics as well. A mastery topic by its nature, because it's something you're interested in, it's generally a good topic to sort of screen the girl as well. Like if a girl has no interest in traveling, she doesn't need to I guess be business minded for me. But if she's not sort of someone with a reasonable amount of dating experience or not somebody who's kind of socially comfortable, these are all my mastery topics, then I'm probably not going to have as good a time hanging out with her. So they kind of double as qualification things as well. And I do it in parallel. So when I talk to the girl, it'll look something like this. Excuse me, I had to come and tell you blah, 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 blah. What's your name? And then at this point, I go into a couple of basic questions that give me some answers that I'll try and bridge off of. So the three questions I do are, what are you doing today? Which is similar, it's the equivalent of the nightclub, what's the occasion tonight, or what are you guys up to tonight? So what are you doing today? What do you do for a living? And what do you do for fun when you're not working? And I don't just rattle off those three questions in a row, obviously, but it's like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, you're on your way to a dance lesson. That's really cool. A few years ago, I was blah, 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 blah. What do you do for a living? You're a lawyer. That's really interesting. You bring up law. And law, for me, not a mastery topic, right? So I'm going to bridge out of it. So I'm going to relate a little bit and say, oh, it's interesting you're a lawyer. A friend of mine, I started hanging out with him a lot recently, just started his new law job in London. And it's pretty brutal. You guys work hard hours, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, how am I going to connect this to a mastery topic? And I've got it worked out. Right? So this is kind of like planning in your homework. But I'm going to make this connection between the brutal hours of being a lawyer to how hard I work on my own business. Yeah, I know what you mean. I work a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, And that's where, like I said, this homework comes in. So, go away, write down all this stuff, write down all the sort of possible things that could come up. And you can chunk things together. So, for example, if you think about the question, what do you do for a living? There's only going to be a certain number of categories of job that a woman might have. So she might do something in the service industry, right? Waitress, bartender. If she does something in the service industry, I'm going to bridge out by talking about how it's cool to have a job where you get to be social. I do the same thing, blah, blah, blah. Or she'll have a professional job, like a lawyer, doctor, accountant. She works a lot of hours. I'm going to talk about the hard work and bridge onto business and entrepreneurship. Or she is an entertainer, dancer, model, stripper, whatever. I'm going to talk about my experience in LA, Vegas, and get involved with the industry here, etc. Okay? So think about what are the possibilities here? And then you'll just get used to rattling off the same story about Sweden 5 million times. The last point I put up is investment equilibrium. So what I mean by this is any interaction with somebody is a process of alternating investment. So what happens is one person invests a bit, and the other person needs to invest back in it in order for that first person to keep investing. Okay, a good relationship, a good interaction kind of builds like this, right? It's bad if you're like, hey, what do you do? And she's like, I build planes, and you're like, cool, blah, 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 and rattle off this long story about traveling that you're not even fully sure if she's interested in yet. So you kind of baby step it, engage, and check she's kind of into what you're talking about. So mastery topics, generally speaking, it's a lot easier when the girl's interested in that thing. She doesn't always have to be. Some girls, especially younger girls, the fact that you're just talking and being confident about, whatever is enough. But, to have a sort of really good conversation, it's good when the girl has some level of interest in traveling or business or whatever it is. But you kind of got to engage with your audience and, check that she's into that thing gradually, right? One thing I do a lot is the cold read bridge. So I did it with that girl. I was like, oh, you look like the artsy creative type. And she was like, that guy said the same thing to me. I was like, fuck. But the reason why I say you're the artsy creative type, because I already have a story in my head about how I'm attracted to those kind of girls, and the last girl I was with was like that, and she was a liability, and blah blah blah. It rolls into this whole set of like value demonstrating stories. Okay, so if you're a musician, if you're involved in the music industry, if you say to girls, you look like you got a creative vibe about you, that leads you down the, oh well, whether she does or not, whether she ends up being like, well, I'm an accountant, that's really weird. Be like, oh, that's so funny. Like, I don't know, I feel like you'd be a good performer on stage. I mean, that's what I do. I'm in a band, and we perform stuff. And you have a good presence, and that's kind of why I came up to you in the first place. Blah 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 blah, right? But you led into it with, listen, you seem like a creative person, okay? And you can do this with anything. It can be personality type, like you seem like you're creative, you seem like you're analytical. You seem like you're a pain in the ass, which I do a lot now as well, because it leads into a good sort of like challenging conversation. You can do it with job types. You seem like you're a lawyer. I reckon you're a lawyer. I reckon you're a teacher. I reckon you work in porn or whatever it is. You look like you like doing this for fun. You look like you like traveling. You seem open-minded or whatever. Another emotional bridge I use is, do you enjoy that? Like, especially if I'm stuck, if she's like, I'm a circus clown and I kind of like don't really have a cool thing to say about it, I might just be, oh, cool. Do you enjoy it? And if she's like, yeah, which I'm hoping that's really cool. I think you got to do the things you love. Last year I decided to move to Sweden and blah, 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 blah. Questions versus statements. Never ask more than 2 questions in a row. I mean, this is annoying in general with like anyone having a conversation with them, but like fucking crucial for the first 30 seconds of a day game approach. If you go up to a guy and you're like, oh, so what do you do? And she's like, oh, I study. And you're like, oh, cool. This is kind of where the second question comes in. Like, normally it's what do you study? Because you need something more specific to figure out your bridge, right? If you're like, what do you study? She's like, biology. If you're like, oh, like where do you study that? And your coach, she's like, I'm good. Okay, so like seriously, no more than 2 questions in a row. Generally speaking, 1 question, bunch of statements, ask another question, target where you're going to bridge to next, and more statements. Just a little bit on relating to people. So this is, like I was saying, when the topic isn't a useful topic for you to stay on, to get out of it. There's a few different ways that you can relate to people. I personally find that the more you get involved with life, the more shit you try, the more friends you make, the more places you go to, and the more stuff you read as well, the more you find like little snippets of things to say about lots of random things. And this actually is a really good reason to talk to strangers everywhere. I mean, I think one of the other instructors was probably saying this, but get social, talk to people in elevators, talk to the barista serving you coffee, how's your day, and try and get onto something else. But the more you find out about different sort of lifestyles, different people, the more you have little things to say on different things. I met this girl once. I approached her on the street, and she wasn't really that into it. She ended up being like, look, I gotta go, I'm working. And it turns out she was an Abercrombie and Fitch model scout. And it was her job to go up to people on the street and approach them and be like, excuse me, I just saw you walking past. And I was like, and I think at this point she was like, look, I have a boyfriend, I gotta go. So I was like, cool, let me just ask you something about your job. I'm a bit curious. And I asked some question just because I wanted to have that knowledge. So the next time I meet a model scout, I can go up and be like, oh yeah, I heard that in your job, you gotta do blah, blah, blah. And that's the tough part, right? You know what I mean? Now I got something to say on it, okay? So talk to people, different jobs, different lifestyles, and learn. This is the map. I'll leave this up, so if you guys want to jot this down, you can. But remember I said the 3 questions I asked. What are you doing today? What do you do for work? And what do you do for a living? And from those, I'm trying to get onto the mastery topics and do a bit of attraction and qualification, and then move up that. This whole process, generally in day game, takes me about 5 minutes. And then at that point, I'm trying to take a phone number and set up a date. I don't really like personally doing a lot of text game and phone game and stuff. So what I'm angling for is a girl that's willing to meet me later or meet me, next week. But if the girl's like, I don't know, I got a boyfriend, or you can take my number, then I'll back down. So I'm shooting for what Braddock calls a short fuse, a girl that's going to meet up with me. But if I don't get that, I'll be like, all right, phone number. If I don't get that, I'll be like, all right, Facebook. I'll come back to this slide. Go out there, give it a try. It is going to scare the crap out of you if it's the first time you've done it. Like, I was shaking and nervous the first time I went into London to do it. You'll feel amazing afterwards. I was telling my boys this morning, it's funny, like sometimes you do an approach that's so gangster. And I talked to this deaf chick, this like hot deaf chick. This is the hottest deaf girl I've ever met last night. I only talked to her for like 3 minutes, right, last night. And that was more enjoyable and better than 2 hours of talking to like some, these other girls or whatever. And sometimes it's like this effect is so pronounced with day game approaches because you'll do this at like, you're nervous as shit and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be so awkward. All these people are going to hear it and I'm going to feel like such a twat doing this. But you go up and you do it and you come off the train or you walk out of that cafe and you're like, oh, fuck, still feel your heart beating, your legs shaking. Maybe you got the number, maybe you didn't. But regardless, you feel amazing. You know why? Because your balls just expanded, right? And you're like, yes, I'm the fucking man. And every other dude is looking at you thinking, shit, like what's that guy got? And that's when you got to tell him about the day game workshop. So yeah, stay in touch with me. I love getting feedback from clients. Anytime you guys want to email me, feel free. Tweet me as well. I'm in love with Twitter right now. So follow that. And I advertise for internships sometimes. If you go onto theattractionforums.com, if you guys sort of want to build more of a relationship with me, get more advice and stuff, becoming one of my interns is a good way to do that. Helping me out with some of my workload, publicity, web stuff. But yeah, check it out on the Attraction Forums. All right, we're out of time for questions, but grab me at one of the breaks. I'll be around. So anything you want to ask, just come find me. Thank you very much.